That was just a brutal game, folks. There's no way to positively spin it. There were some bright sides. I'll get into that in just a moment, but the negatives far outweigh the positives. This was a game that Steve Kerr, in my opinion, blew because of his poor personnel roster management again, primarily in that second quarter. And the Golden State Warriors continue having the worst record on the road in the Western Conference, and they are now once again below 500. Things aren't that good in Warriors land. I'm solo tonight. It's Wednesday Night Live. And I'm going to break down next what went wrong, what has been going wrong, what went right, a few things did, and where the Warriors stand this season. I wish this could be such a positive show, but again, when the Warriors lose a game like that, we don't even know if Steph Curry's okay. Oh boy. Here we go, folks. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. I'm solo tonight. This will probably be a short and sweet show. And the Warriors are now a game below 500 at the 29-game mark of the season. We're approaching the 1/3 mark of the season, folks. And the fact that the Warriors are below 500 is incredibly concerning. What's more concerning, in my humble opinion, is how Steve Kerr continues to bungle this roster. The Warriors' second quarter was a disaster. And that was the difference in this game. The Warriors only lost by 6 points. This was a one-possession game with, I think, like 20 seconds remaining, when Dante DiVincenzo hit back-to-back three-pointers at the end, near the end there. And I got my score sheet in front of me. So DiVincenzo hit that second three-pointer at the 125 mark to cut the game to 3. It was a one-possession game until the 106 mark, when a charge that was called to Miles Turner was overturned. Miles Turner made the free throw. Kind of sealed the deal after that. But that second quarter, and I got the chat open right now. I'm going to try to stay on top of everything that's going on with the chat, but there's a few topics that have to be covered on this show tonight. And that second quarter is what I need to highlight first and foremost. It was an utter disaster. And when you consider that the Warriors lost this game by 6 points, when you consider that it was a one-possession game with just over a minute to play, the only difference in the whole game was that second quarter. A second quarter where the Warriors were outscored 47-28. The Warriors were only down 1 starting the second quarter. They were in this game. They were competing. Steph Curry was having just yet another magnificent performance. His stat sheet, I'll read it to you in a second, was incredible as usual. But Steve Kerr, once again, decides in the second quarter, I'm going to bring in my two favorite players. Two players, by the way, that are brand new to this roster, that none of us had even heard of, unless you're just an absolute basketball junkie who follows every single roster on the planet. But Jerome and Anthony Lamb were nobodies before the Warriors added them right before the start of the season. And you know what happened in that second quarter? Steve Kerr, instead of playing trusted players in this organization, people have been here and done that before, instead of putting in players who have actual talent and athleticism and size, no, he brings in Jerome and he brings in Anthony Lamb. And in that disastrous second quarter where the Warriors were outscored 47-28, Anthony Lamb for the game puts a -18 in the plus-minus chart. Jerome puts a -20 in the plus-minus chart. The next closest to those two, by the way, in terms of poor performance, Steph and Curry, who had a -6. Those two were almost single-handedly responsible for that disastrous second quarter. Steve Kerr, to a certain degree, came to his senses because we didn't see Lamb much for the rest of the game. We saw Ty Jerome a little more for the rest of the game. But at game 29 of the regular season, why is the head coach of the Golden State Warriors the one who is seeing what last after everyone else? That Moses Moody should be playing, that Jonathan Kuminga should have been getting heavier minutes. Moses Moody should have been playing a lot more. If there's one bright side, I'll get to the bright sides of this game in just a second. It's that I hope Steve Kerr is finally realizing that Moses Moody needs to play some goddamn minutes. All right? He needs to play. Moses Moody, besides my favorite play in basketball is the 4-point play, which has become far more prevalent today than it did when I was a kid. Moses Moody had one of those. Stephen Curry, by the way, had his 8th 4-point play of the season. I'll talk about his injury in just a second. There isn't much known about it, but I'll touch on what we do know so far. But Moses Moody tonight, 23 minutes of play. It was one of his top minute outputs of the season by far. 13 points. He was 2 for 3 from beyond the arc, 5 for 6 from the field. Added 3 assists. Jonathan Kuminga had another monster. Not monster, that's hyperbolic, but fantastic game. The hustle was there. The points weren't, but he still finished in the positive and plus minus. 9 points, 8 rebounds in only 24 minutes of play. And this Anthony Lamb, Ty Jerome show just has to end. It's, I've been saying this since day one. What the hell are these guys doing? I remember Ty Jerome, the first time we saw him, I think was in a preseason game where one of his first plays was just a ridiculous travel call that I think cost the Warriors the one preseason loss. Don't quote me on that, but I'm going off strictly memory here. But I don't get it. I don't get the Ty Jerome, Anthony Lamb experiment. Ty Jerome does nothing on the court. Anthony Lamb, an alleged rapist, also does nothing on the court. I don't want to see minutes from them anymore. The loss tonight was single-handedly because of those two. It literally was. James Wiseman could have contributed tonight. He continues to play for the Santa Cruz Warriors. There's a debate there about how many more games should he play in Santa Cruz before he's ready to play for the Warriors. I've been saying now, but he's still in Santa Cruz, and he's playing great, by the way. So, and Henry Braxton, and this is the tired trope I keep hearing from people over and over again. Henry Braxton writes, not questioning Kerr, how many rings has he been responsible for? That doesn't make him infallible. Do you realize how many mistakes Kerr has made? Here's a question I pose to you about Kerr for everyone who thinks, oh, I'm just going to obey and listen to whatever he says. He's perfect. He's the greatest coach ever. He's not the greatest coach ever. He's a great coach, not the greatest coach ever. And he might be a little overrated given how often I get into these arguments with people about Kerr's decision-making. Steve Kerr is the same guy who a year ago waived Gary Payne II. Steve Kerr is the same guy who didn't play Gary Payne II in game 1 of the NBA Finals, a game they lost. Steve Kerr is the same guy who in 2018, when the Warriors should have easily taken care of the Houston Rockets in the Western Conference Finals, decides, I have this amazing center in JaVale McGee who could neutralize Clint Capella, but I'm not going to play him the entire series. He makes mistakes. They're overcome oftentimes because he has Stephen Curry on his roster, one of the greatest in the history of this game. He has Draymond Green on his roster, one of the greatest defensive players, one of the greatest high basketball IQ players in the history of this game. They have Klay Thompson, quite possibly the second greatest shooter in the history of this game. He's had Andre Iguodala, who's as much of a coach as he is, who until just very recent history was an incredible player, possible Hall of Famer. He has had a roster of the ages. So do not sit here and tell me that Kerr is infallible, that he doesn't make mistakes. He has butchered this season so far with this incessant dependence on Ty Jerome. on Anthony Lamb. These are nobodies, folks. And I've been trying to hold my tongue for a long time because so many people love Kerr and support his decision-making. Because so many people, I don't know why, we're defending these two guys. They suck by basketball standards. All right, we're talking relatively here. By world championship standards, those two guys suck. You by the way, writes, why were we playing zone? I want to, and that's a good point you bring up because the zone defense in the NBA is gimmicky. It's okay if you pull it out every once in a while to surprise a team, but usually if you're playing the zone as much as the Warriors are, that's because you have no faith in your players playing man defense and or you're lost and have no answers, and so you throw out the zone. A defensive scheme that CYO coaches in the third grade throw out. All right? I don't know why the zone's being played so much. I don't get it. It's not a good look. It is not a good look, and the Warriors do that a lot, and it's not translating because their defense is horrible this year. They gave up another 125 points tonight to the Indiana Pacers. I don't want to see Ty Jerome anymore. I don't want to see Anthony Lamb anymore. It's that experiment needs to end. The Warriors have better players on the Santa Cruz roster than those two. I'd rather see Travion Williams than Anthony Lamb. I'd rather see Mac McClung come back for Ty Jerome. I'd rather see Pat Spencer than Ty Jerome. The Warriors spent, $3 million during the draft to move up 5 places to get Ryan Rollins, a player that was supposedly NBA ready, a player that just had a triple-double for the Santa Cruz Warriors the other day. Why are we not seeing him? He's supposed to be a defensive stalwart with a long wingspan. Why do we keep seeing Ty Jerome? I got a sponsor here. Today's show is brought to you by Turo. Look, in this day and age where there's still a supply shortage of vehicles, Turo is a possible solution for you because they're the world's largest car sharing marketplace. And in case you haven't noticed recently, if you want to buy a car, it's hard. If you want to rent a car, it's expensive and possibly hard. That's where Turo comes to play. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. Book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. Get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from point A to point B. You could test drive that new electric vehicle you've had your eye on to see how it fits in your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. We're back at it, folks. I want to play a soundbite. And by the way, NoCap757, you bring up Jordan Poole. And I saw some people on Twitter tonight ripping on Jordan Poole. I don't mind what Jordan Poole is doing this year. And NoCap writes, Poole just needs NBA-ready IQ players around him in that second unit. He'd be fine. Look who he played with off the bench last year. I agree. Jordan Poole should be one of the last people that people are directing criticism toward. I think he's actually playing some great ball lately. And he's finally resolved that consistency issue. To put it in perspective for you, at the beginning of the season, you'd have a great game from him. You'd see a horrible game after that. But this year, at least recently, after that slow start, over the past 7 games, he's put up point totals of 30, 21, 23, 36, 20, At Milwaukee, he only had 18. That was a bad night for him recently. And then he had 20 tonight against the Pacers. He's getting there, folks. He's 23 years old. I'm not worried about him. I think Jordan Poole should be fine. The issue here is what players the Warriors are putting out there, and the rotations that Kerr is pulling. We had a cataclysmic, a horrific, potential season-turning moment in this game tonight when Steph and Curry got injured. It looked routine. Steph reached in, tried to get a steal. Looked like his hand maybe got caught on the ball a little bit. I know Solomon's Tech. I don't think the Warriors are god awful, but they're underperforming big time right now. Going back to the Steph thing, something happened there. It could be a tweak. Chris Mullin was saying after the game that he thinks, based on the optics of it, that it was nothing more than a stinger. But we don't know. He's going to get an MRI tomorrow, and if that injury is serious, folks, season's done. No repeat, plain and simple. I think we all know that. So let's hope that the severity of the injury is not great. And here is Steve Kerr talking about the injury right after the game.
Any update on Steph?
He's going to get an MRI tomorrow. So, he was ruled out, midway through the fourth. Training staff told me he wasn't going to play the rest of the night. And we'll see. We'll see how he is tomorrow.
Did they say anything about the level of pain that he was feeling?
No, I didn't ask about that. I mean, I just trust their judgment, and they said he's not going back in, and I haven't really, I just checked in with him briefly, but haven't had a chance to go into detail with him.
Some of the conversation was brief, but what were his spirits in this like?
Spirits were good. Steph's always a guy with a great outlook on life, so he's in good spirits, and we'll hope for the best.
So I got one more soundbite I want to play. I was watching the post-game press conference, and a reporter asked Kerr about that second quarter personnel decision to play Lamb and play Jerome, and how in the third quarter he opted not to play those two. And sure enough, we saw a huge difference. And let me see if he says what I heard in this clip, I'll be stoked. If not, I'll explain what Kerr said, which was on one hand encouraging, but on the other hand, even more frustrating. And let's first hear him here, because I haven't heard this yet either. And then we'll follow up on that. So here's Steve Kerr talking about the youngsters navigating a tough stretch.
Got to find a way to navigate this season, and continue to bring along the young guys. I thought both J.K. and Moses did a great job tonight. So fun to see them grow. And, we've got to continue to find rotations that make sense as guys are in and out with injury, and just keep fighting. And if we do that, and I feel good about our team long term, even though it may be a rocky ride to get there.
All right, so that is not the clip I was looking for, and I'll try to track that down at some point. Basically, Kerr was asked again about the differences in the substitutions, the personnel between the first half and the second half, and more specifically the second quarter and third quarter. And the reporter, I don't know who it was, alluded strictly to Ty Jerome and Anthony Lamb. It was like, hey, they weren't in the third. You were successful. They were in the second. You guys were blown out and lost that quarter by 19 points. And Kerr, on one hand, was praising the youngsters. I don't know if he mentioned it by name, but he was praising Kuminga and Moody and some of the other players who were stepping up. He was crediting that the vibe of the team changed in the third quarter. But then he backtracked and then said it was not the difference in personnel. Okay, like I do not understand what is going on with Steve Kerr this year in terms of why he's being so stubborn with playing Ty Jerome and Anthony Lamb. I don't get it. Now, I see people in the chat talking about Jamycal Green. I'll touch on him in just a moment. But look, the Jordan Poole thing, and the reason why I'm not going to overly criticize him, And the reason why I support, in a lot of ways, Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody is because they have proven, granted as supporting cast members, but they have proven they know how to win. And more importantly, they've proven they know how to win world championships. Okay. Jordan Poole is only going to get better as a player. And these last 2-3 games without Andrew Wiggins, the burden has been on him a lot more. And so maybe the turnovers will uptick as a result. Maybe he'll try to force things a little more. I know the traveling calls and the carry calls are still there. But, folks, I mean, for anyone who's blasting Jordan Poole or being critical of Jordan Poole, you do not have a better option to go to. And I don't know if you win a championship last year without him. All right? We can't forget that. You can't forget who was on this team last year when the Warriors won their 4th world championship. Jordan Poole was a part of that. He was a huge part of that. Jordan Poole also was sucker punched in training camp this year and has had to deal with that. Having to deal with a coworker who just nearly knocked you out with a flying punch to the jaw. I just can't put. I just don't feel comfortable criticizing Jordan Poole. I think he's actually doing okay, and more recently, his numbers have gone on the rise. I mentioned again the last 7 games, basically since December, his stats have completely turned around. He's now averaging 17.8 points per game. That's before tonight, so his scoring average might be up to 18. He's averaging just shy of 5 assists a game. His field goal percentage is now above 43% and going up. I'm not that worried about him. In fact, I'm actually seeing a lot of encouraging things about Jordan Poole. He's being very aggressive attacking the rim. He's actually showing that he's gained strength because he's muscling his way inside at times. And bottom line is, without Jordan Poole, this team's done. They have no chance. So you can criticize Jordan Poole all you want. I get it. He does some frustrating things out there. But he's a part of this team for the long run. So you can criticize him all you want, but he's not going anywhere for a very long time, and he's a part of this team. Now, again, Anthony Lamb, Ty Jerome, what the hell are you doing, Kerr? Today's show is also brought to you by BetOnline, one of our longtime sponsors. An awesome, really fun place to go to if you want to bet on sports, and more specifically, betonline.net is your number one source for sports betting information, statistics, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. The World Cup finale is right around the corner. You got the college bowl season. They've got it all. Just go to betonline.net. They are your primary resource for sports betting information. They're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online. It's where the game starts.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Jamycal Green, at least as a 3-point shooter tonight, had a breakout game. He went a perfect 3 for 3 from the 3-point line. Added another field goal on top of that. Had 6 free throw attempts. He got to the line. He was aggressive, had 5 rebounds, 15 points in only 19 minutes of play. He's kind of become a polarizing figure because some people think that Jamycal Green should go. I need to get that overlay out of here. I don't hear a lot of defenders of his, maybe rightfully so, but I don't mind him that much. And here's a huge reason why I want to give him a little time. Wait, no, hold on. No Cap here is writing something I wanted to answer. I try not to ever shy away from questions. Oh, No Cap writes, do I get paid to do this show? Yeah, of course. Do you realize how much work I put into this thing? Am I paid a lot? No, but yes, I get paid. Anyway, so Jamycal Green, the reason why I want to give him some time is because a weekly co-host of this show, Kevin Dana, he's the voice of the Santa Cruz Warriors. Dana, I trust him. He knows basketball. Obviously a good dude. He loves Jamycal Green. Jamycal Green was a G League player some years ago. And Kevin Dana really endorses him. And there are moments where Jamycal Green does come through. Again, tonight was a great performance. His three actually looked good. And no cap. This is not even my day job. My day job, I'm actually a professor. I was a media professional full time for 15 years, but then academia, I love it, man. It's just, but whatever, man. I'll talk about myself some other time. Jamycal Green, I thought did good, and if this is what he starts doing consistently, spacing the floor as a stretch five, you have some value there. All right. He's been a horrible 3-point shooter entering tonight. There's no doubt about that. I think entering the game, he was averaging as a 3-point shooter. He was shooting 19.5%. That is just awful. That doesn't reflect tonight. So we'll see if that percentage goes up. But if Jamycal Green can turn it around as a 3-point shooter, they have something there. He provides tremendous value. If this was just a blip, if this was just an anomaly, anyone who says Jamycal Green needs to go, I can't argue with you. Because he has been a massive disappointment this year. And Trey Underwood writes, for example, don't let tonight fool you on Jamycal Green. You might be right. You might absolutely be right. Toasted Goat writes, Draymond Green, who did not have a great game. He got ejected after a second technical where he was complaining to the refs incessantly, consistently, primarily not only about a foul call that was called on him. I think it was on a 3-point attempt by Ben Mathurin, but he was just sick and tired of the travel calls, and he was constantly speaking out. But he did not have a great game tonight. And Toast the Goat writes, Dre's been terrible the last 2 games offensively, even with playmaking. We were playing 3-on-5 the whole game. Was it that bad? I mean, I kind of missed that. His stat line for tonight, he played 27 minutes. Ooh, Jesus. Yeah, he had a horrible game tonight. Yeah, I missed that. He had 1 whopping point from a free throw. I did not realize that was his only point of the entire game. He went 0 for 3 from the field, only had 2 rebounds, only had 3 assists. He had 6 turnovers. That's talk about an example of a plus minus not always being reflective, because he was +5 in that category. But I mean, look, I saw. Here's the thing with Draymond Green. He should not be your center during the regular season. In case you forgotten about that infamous, notorious death lineup, which was absolutely a marvel to look at if you love basketball, and especially if you love the Warriors. I mean, the death lineup was labeled appropriately. They were borderline unstoppable, and but Kerr didn't enact the death lineup during the regular season that much. This was not a consistent thing. Normally, the Warriors had a center alongside Draymond. Draymond's back injury is hernia. It's almost assuredly. I've had medical professionals on this show confirming my worst suspicion, which is that all the wear and tear of Draymond playing the 4, playing the 5, could have directly correlated to the disc slippage in his back, the hernia, which he's going to have to deal with the rest of his life. Clearly, there's been a regression in his game. He did not have a good game tonight. I agree. But that's part of a bigger crisis, which is that Steve Kerr just, again, and I don't know who you want to blame. I don't know if you want to blame Bob Myers. I don't know if you want to blame Kerr himself. Steve Kerr does have a very strong say on personnel matters. Okay, that is fact. So we all know that Kerr loves small ball. We know that Bob Myers loves small ball. Look, small ball in a large, in a lot of ways, it's effective. I mean, you look at the Final Four teams last year, and there was really no standout traditional center for good reason. They have been phased out of this game in a lot of ways. Obviously, Nikola Jokic is a fine example, Joel Embiid, but the Warriors don't subscribe to the traditional center, not anymore, at least. I don't think we've seen one on the roster. I mean, Willie Cauley-Stein, technically, but before him, it was JaVale McGee, Andrew Bogut, but they don't have anyone like that. James Wiseman's the only one. And we've seen how Kerr's been treating him is like a persona non grata. Solomon's Tech, I'm gonna put that comment up there in a second because that's a good question. But the problem is you're gonna really wear down players like Draymond Green, like Kevon Looney, if you don't give them help. And that is where Jamycal Green has value because he can't spell Draymond, he can spell Looney, and you're not losing a huge step defensively or on the rebounding side of things. But offensively, until tonight, he was a massive liability before putting in 15 points. But Draymond Green had a horrible game. Stephen Curry, I quickly want to highlight before he left the game after playing 30 minutes with that shoulder injury. And again, the MRI is scheduled for tomorrow. I'm recording this. It's currently 7:25 p.m. on December 14th. So the morning of December 15th is likely when we'll get some more news on that shoulder. Let's really hope there's nothing serious. He was having a lights out performance tonight. He had 38 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds. He was 5 for 10 from beyond the arc. Oh, and then we saw the injury. And even when you talk about putting too much pressure on a player, Stephen Curry might be someone you could throw in there. I mean, he's carrying the load so much. The question Solomon's Tech asks, do you still believe that the Warriors don't need a trade? When you say still believe, I never once said that they don't. A lot of what I say is based on pragmatism in terms of what I think the Warriors will and will not do. Would I like the Warriors to have a trade? Hell yeah. Do I think they'll pull a trade? No, I don't think so. And history has shown this. I think Bob Myers, in terms of midseason trades, the Andrew Wiggins one was the exception. So I don't know if you will. I would love it. This team needs size. If I had to guess in terms of any potential transactions happening for the Warriors this season, my guess would be that the Warriors will maybe find someone out from the buyout market come January, February. And Solomon, you're right. If they don't make a trade, it would be a profound mistake. Maybe. Now, here's where on Flagstaff, what are you writing here? Am I a former NBA coach? No, I have been a coach. And I played most of my life, but no, I was not an NBA coach. That would be an awesome job. Stressful is all hell job though, right? And Daniel O'Reilly writes, do you reckon Bob Myers is waiting for the Raptors to blow it up? Could be a few teams that he might be waiting for. The Raptors being one of them, the Chicago Bulls being one of them, although I spoke to the Locked On Bulls hosts and they said don't expect that to happen this year. I don't agree with the premise, though, that Paul Revere writes, which is that no trade, no chip. I don't agree with that. It's just that if they don't make a trade, it's going to be a lot harder. Yes, and Toast the Goat writes, I would rather take Marquise Chris right now over Lamb. Hell yeah. In a second, I wouldn't even blink at that. So I don't think it's necessary. And the reason why I don't think it's necessary is because I know I'm in the minority saying this, I still have faith that James Wiseman can give you 15 to 20 minutes a night. He just needs a goddamn chance. All right. He just needs the actual opportunity to play. I cannot judge players negatively on this roster ever again if the only opportunity they're getting is 5 to 10 minutes of a no confidence short leash maneuver by Steve Kerr. All right. We're seeing what happens when Moses Moody plays. We're seeing what happens when Jonathan Kuminga plays. I want to see Wiseman play real minutes. And if he plays real minutes, and if he sucks after 20, 25 minutes again, blame him all you want at that point. But the only evidence you have right now that Wiseman sucks is Kerr's actions, which I do not have a lot of faith in. I don't look, I love Steve Kerr as a person, and I don't want to replace him, but he is having a horrible year this year in terms of job performance. And again, Solomon's Tech, you're right. The problem is Wiseman makes us worse. Sort of. I mean, if you're judging him based on those early season games, he was one of many players who was underperforming or poorly performing. Have you already forgotten Klay Thompson? Draymond Green is a virtual persona non grata. The second time I've said that on the show. offensively. I know he's had some good offensive games this year, but in general, he's not a threat. He doesn't do much. This team, so your offense relies largely, until Klay Thompson started getting better early in the season, it was just Steph and Wiggins. So if you're judging Wiseman just on the beginning of the season, that's a very weak sample size to judge him on. What he's been doing in Santa Cruz has been exemplary. It's been great, especially the last few games. And a person like Wiseman is going to be showing a lot of development and growth in a very short period of time. And what he's doing in Santa Cruz right now tells me that he should be getting some minutes for the Warriors. I don't want to see Anthony Lamb out there ever again. Ever again. The sooner that player is off this roster, the sooner I'm a happier person. The same goes for Ty Jerome. James Wiseman needs minutes. All I'm saying is judge the man after he's actually given an opportunity to play real minutes. I'm not going to sit here and criticize him and say he's a bad player because the evidence is not there for me to say so. The only real evidence we have on James Wiseman is his rookie season, where he was playing 21 minutes a game, averaging 11.5 points and nearly 6 rebounds, again, in 21 minutes. That's not bad. For a rookie who only played 3 college games, that's not bad. The only statistic from his rookie season that was a huge glaring negative was plus minus. And again, that's a stat that is very subjective because he's on the court with 4 other players. That Warriors team was not great to begin with. And this season's team reminds me a lot of them, if anything, which is really sad. That's for another show. But and then this season, he plays a handful of games at the beginning of the year when the whole team is playing awful. He goes to Santa Cruz. He's started off playing solid, not spectacular. Now he's playing spectacular. Give the man a chance. He's a 7'1" athletic behemoth. He can go out there and dominate. So I just want to see him. And again, Ray says let's not overreact to tonight's game because the Warriors are missing 2 starters. You're absolutely right. Tonight is not an overreaction, but I don't think judging Kerr based on that second quarter when the Warriors were outscored by 19 points because he preferred Anthony Lamb and Ty Jerome playing significant minutes, that is not an overreaction. That's something that Kerr's been doing all season. I've had enough of it. Okay. It's costing this team games. And Solomon's Tech, when you say you don't know if he can fit, again, let's just see it. Okay. Let's just see it. And it wasn't as soon as he got injured, the Dubs went on a run. I don't know what you're referring to. You're referring to his rookie season. Yeah, but he also was starting to turn it around before the injury. That's what my memory shows me. So I need to see him play real minutes before I make any kind of judgment on that. I'm sorry. I do not trust Steve Kerr just by him saying I'm not going to play him. That does not equate to me. Oh, then he sucks. Kerr has not earned the benefit of the doubt. Very few people in the history of this planet have. So and Yo writes, and this is a good point too. When Wanamaker stopped playing and Steph went crazy, we went on a run. That's also true, by the way. I want to see what else is in here, by the way. I also want to give some love, by the way, to Dante DiVincenzo tonight, who had another solid game. Talk about a massively huge pickup for the Warriors this season. DiVincenzo played 38 minutes tonight. He started in place of Klay Thompson. That was new. And he had a plus 19 in the plus minus, had 15 points, went 3 for 6 from 3. I loved what he did out there. He also had 8 rebounds. 38 minutes for DiVincenzo. I like that. That's a good thing. All right. I support that. I wholeheartedly endorse that. Jonathan Kuminga had 24 minutes tonight, 9 points, 8 rebounds. Why not give him 30 minutes? Moses Moody had 23 minutes tonight, had 13 points on 2 of 3 shooting from beyond the arc. Why not give him 30 minutes? And why not try Wiseman? You're losing so many games without him. What do you have to lose? What do you have to lose, man? This season has just been a disaster. It really has. See if there's anyone else that we need to talk about that we haven't talked about tonight, but I think that's it. The Pacers have the Warriors number. I don't know what else to really say about that. For people who want to trade, I would like it. I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. I just don't think that the Warriors are so prudent, very cautious when it comes to personnel changes, except when it comes to Anthony Lamb and Ty Jerome. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Before we go, any other questions in the chat before I call it a night? Solomon's Tech writes, have you heard what DiVincenzo said? He said we need to start playing Warriors basketball. I saw that. That's a cliche statement. It doesn't mean much. Gravy Back writes, Moody is obviously so much better than Jerome and Lamb. Absolutely. I think someone asked, why isn't Klay Thompson playing back-to-backs? It's because of his conditioning. It's because the team wants to play it safe with his the two severe leg injuries. I don't know if you'll see him play back-to-backs all season. So, and the playoffs don't have back-to-backs. Coast to coast, I'm sorry that I'm calling a night right as you jumped on. I'm supposed to make these shows 30 minutes. I'm already 10 minutes late. And Yo asks, when do you think Wiseman will come back? I don't know. That's a great question. Like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if he stayed in Santa Cruz through January. It also wouldn't surprise me if we saw him Friday, because this Warriors team desperately needs players. I mean, they're very short-handed. They have no interior size. This is bad. I really do hope the Warriors do something here soon. I wouldn't mind seeing some more Patrick Baldwin Jr., although he's really raw. I could understand not playing him. Not playing Ryan Rollins is a huge mystery to me. That part I don't get. And the Warriors are back at it. And I believe Friday, they are in Philly. Oh, my God. Okay, what's the over? Before we go, what's the over-under from the crew here for Joel Embiid points? What's the OU? That's who the Warriors are playing Friday. Kevon Looney's going to defend Joel Embiid. Draymond Green, who's actually somewhat effective guarding Joel Embiid. The 76ers last year gave the Warriors legitimate problems. So the Warriors could very easily fall to 0-3 on the to start this road trip. And Gravy Back, I agree. Play Rollins over Ty Jerome. Play Rollins over Anthony Lamb. I agree. Joe William, I agree. Kerr is too conservative, especially this season. He's playing scared. God damn it, he's playing scared, man. Coast to Coast writes, should have kept Travion Williams. He's with the Santa Cruz Warriors. They could call him up. I've been saying on the show for weeks, I would rather have Travion Williams than Anthony Lamb as a two-way player. But contact the Warriors. Complain to Kerr, because my complaints are falling on deaf ears, clearly. So, all right, folks. I'm sorry. I know I wasn't the most positive tonight, but this experiment with the two-way players has to end. It has to end. We're going to be at the 30-game mark on Friday against the Sixers. Some things are fairly obvious at this point. Anthony Lamb and Ty Jerome, obviously, are not vital for this team. They shouldn't be playing. They should not. I wouldn't mind them at the very end of the bench playing garbage time minutes, being your emotional players on the bench for big plays. That's all I want. Stay at the end of the bench. Come in the game if the team's blowing someone out. Cheer for your teammates. That's it. Stay. Just stay at the end. Stay right there. Right there. Don't move. End of the bench. Stay. That's all I want from them, man. That's all I want. But Steve Kerr, is doing whatever the hell. All right, anyone. And Femi Hassan Whiteside, we talked about him last game. Probably not going to be a player the Warriors would pursue. They'd likely want someone with more athleticism who could run the floor faster. Whiteside's kind of slow. And Trey Underwood writes, James Wiseman is dominating right now. By the way, that game is on, folks. The moment you leave this, turn on NBC Sports Bay Area. It might be the second one. I think there's 3 NBC Sports channels. The Santa Cruz Warriors are probably on the second or third one. Go listen to my boy Kevin Danny. He's going to join me tomorrow. We'll break this down some more. Thank you for jumping on today. And yeah, rough game, folks. What are we going to do? The good news is still a lot of time. They're still the Golden State Warriors. And yeah. All right, folks. Thank you. Love y'all. Later.